Hi, today we're going to be working on the driver PCB for my aquarium light. This is the PCB that we had assembled at PCB Way. However, I didn't have the connectors soldered in because I hadn't selected which ones I was using. In the end, it turned out that I was just going to use these 0.1 inch headers, so I've just soldered those in now. It turned out to be pretty heavy going on this 24 volt connector because we've got a lot of copper connected to these pads, so that was quite hard going even for my Metcal soldering station. Also, I've just made this modification for the MOSFET because, as you'll know, I actually was impatient, concerned about the timelines, and decided to order this PCB without having fully tested the high current driver PCB for the white LED. So unfortunately, I've had to make this modification to this board. It'll be interesting to see if we get the same noise from that capacitor. We can remove it if it turns out to be noisy, but it's a slightly different configuration. It'll be interesting to see if that still happens. And then we've got some new drivers down here to take a look at. Now, I've been working on a few other aspects of this project. We've got what I'm calling the light engine. So this is where the LED PCB is. It's got this shroud to go around it to block some of the light coming out, because the whole thing is going to be in a 3D printed silver case, but that silver 3D printing material is a little bit translucent, so I wanted to block any light coming out. We've got the heatsink. We've got a 80mm fan. This is probably way overkill for what we need. And then the idea is that this PCB then mounts to the top, and it should just slide in through here. We've got a pin header here. This is the one that goes to the LED, so that plugs in there. And then there's one more PCB, which is going to go on the top, that plugs directly into these pin headers. And just with these little 11mm spacers, that should give us exactly the right spacing for the top board, which has the ESP32 on it. So that's basically how it's all coming together. So this PCB ended up being a little bit less dense than it certainly could have been. This is actually a 4-layer PCB, mainly for convenience and also so we can have nice thick copper pores for all of the power planes and everything like that that's going to all of these drivers. But really, it's not very densely populated, and as I mentioned, this was quite an expensive PCB in the end. Really, the rest of the electronics probably could have gone on this side of the board, and we could have done a double-sided load, had the ESP32 and all that kind of stuff on this side of the board. However, since this was my first order trying to get this PCB assembled at PCB Way, I didn't want to complicate things too much by having other components on the board. So we've ended up with this situation where we've got the driver PCB and then another PCB that mounts to the back of it for all of the control electronics. So let's have a little look at what we've got on the PCB. So we've got our 24 volt coming in on the left here, and we've also got this control header coming in from the control PCB. You can see the legend on here. So we've got 24 volts plus and minus 2 pins each. Then we've got the control, so this is the PWM signals for the white, blue, green, amber and red on these pins. And then the bottom 5 pins are for a temperature sensor, which I think I mounted on this PCB just so we could monitor the temperature on the driver PCB. It's pretty superfluous, especially when it's going to be sitting next to the fan. I don't think we're ever going to have an issue with any kind of heat buildup or anything like that, but I thought it'd just be nice to add in there. Then we've got the 2.4 amp LED driver for the white LED, as we've seen in previous videos. And then we've got 4 identical LED drivers for the Cree XPE LEDs. The only difference is that the red is a 700 milliamp constant current driver, amber 500, and the green and blue both at 1 amp to comply with the maximum rating for those Cree XPE LEDs. So here are those LED drivers. They're based around the AL8843 LED driver and a pretty standard configuration. So 2 input capacitors, one 10 mic and one 100 nanofarads going into V in. The controller itself has an internal switch. So the only external components we have on the other side is the inductor, the diode, the current setting resistor, and then we've also got a capacitor on the output just to reduce the ripple current in the LEDs slightly. And the only difference between each of these channels is the resistor for setting the current. So we've made a slight compromise on the red channel. It's not going to quite get its 700 milliamps because of the standard resistor values, but that's really it. And then if we have a look just up here, we've got the control inputs. So these are the PWM inputs into the control pin. Normally they are tied to ground through these 47k resistors. So when we power up this board, hopefully all of these LED drivers should basically be shut off. But when we get the PWM signals coming in, then that will have a much lower impedance and be able to drive the PWM brightness control. So a quick look at the datasheet. It's the AL8843 from Diodes Inc. Very similar driver to the AL8805 that I used on the ring light project that caused me all those troubles. Hopefully we won't see the same issues. This one's rated up to 40 volts instead of 36. It has a heatsink pad because it has an internal 3 amp switch and anywhere up to 1 megahertz switching frequency, but it's basically a hysteresis controller, so it basically just turns the transistor on and off as it toggles around the set point. So here is the internal block diagram. Very straightforward really. We've got an internal regulator for the electronics in the chip. We've got the PWM electronics here, which basically turns on and off the voltage reference. We've got the current monitor, which is basically just reading the voltage measured across that resistor. And then the hysteresis control. So basically when the current drops below the threshold, it turns on the MOSFET here. And then when it goes past upper threshold, then it turns it back off and it just toggles on and off to maintain a constant current. So just a bit of detail about that control pin. You can drive it with an analog voltage from 0.4 volts all the way up to 2.5 volts. And that will allow you to control the brightness from 10 to 100%. However, it doesn't allow you 0 to 10% control. So you do have that jump from 0 to 10%. So I'm going to be driving it with a PWM signal. And the logic thresholds are 0.3 volts or less to turn the output off, or above 2.6 volts to turn it on, which is fine for our ESP32 to drive. The maximum is 6 volts into that pin, so we do need to be aware of that while I'm testing it with a signal generator. So the next thing to do is just to check that when we apply power to it, we haven't got any massive currents flowing. Now I've got a little pin header here, which will be able to connect to the 24 volt header on the back of the PCB. So that's the correct polarity. And since we did have trouble with the diodes LED drivers on the ring light project, I'm going to slowly bring up the voltage with the current limited to about 30 milliamps, and hopefully, because it already has pull-ups on the header here for the PWM inputs, the actual drivers should basically be in shutdown, so I should hardly see any current. We've just got this LED on the left hand side here. And that all looks fine. That's at 24 volts and we're drawing about 3 milliamps, which corresponds with the current for that LED. So I think I'm going to grab a DC load now and we'll try each of the LED drivers in turn. Okay, so I think we're ready to go. I've got the DC load underneath here. This is the CORAD KEL103. Then I've got the meter meter here reading the current, and the fluke reading the voltage from the output from the PCB. Now currently the load is turned off, so let's power up the PCB. So that's now powered up. You can see the green LED. And what we've got here is the PWM input into the red channel, and we have the red channel connected up to this equipment here. So with the load turned off, first of all, it should basically have the MOSFET on the whole time. So we should see about 22.7 volts or so coming up on this meter here. So let's trigger the enable. And there we go, 22.7. So let's turn on the load. It's currently set to 10 ohms constant resistance, and this should be a 700 milliamp or so LED driver. And there we go, 650 milliamps, so just slightly less, as I said, because we compromised on the resistor value, but that is quite stable and working quite nicely, so that's a good start. Let's just check each of the other channels in turn, and then we'll just go on to the white channel, which is a little bit different. So amber, this should be about 500 milliamps. So turn the load on. 490 milliamps, so that is fine. Next we'll go on to the green channel. So 900 milliamps, I think that's correct. But the blue channel should be exactly the same. Yeah, about the same. So finally onto the white channel. So we've got the enable already connected up. Let's turn on the DC load. And it's about 2.1 amps, which I think is a little bit less than we saw on the other board. Maybe the tolerance on the current sense resistor is slightly off. That's the only thing that will change the current setting, other than the internal voltage reference maybe, but that shouldn't be a problem. So maybe I'll try and pick out a slightly better choice for that resistor so that we drive it at the full 2.4 amps. But that does seem to be working. What I do want to try quickly is with the signal generator, seeing if we still get that buzzing noise with this particular PCB on that channel. And I can hear it. It's not as loud as on the smaller PCB. I don't know if the microphone is going to pick it up actually. But yeah, it is still quite loud, so that will need removing and replacing with a different capacitor. So that is now working quite nicely. We've got an electrolytic capacitor. That's a Rubicon ZLH electrolytic capacitor, and that is working quite nicely with no noise. Now, one thing to be wary of is that electrolytic capacitors in particular, as well as tantalum capacitors, do have a maximum ripple current rating. And basically this is seeing quite a large change in voltage, so we are seeing a fair amount of current going in and out of this capacitor. So I think this particular one has a ripple current rating of about 500 milliamps. So what happens above that is the temperature inside can start to increase. It's basically related to the equivalent series resistance of the capacitor, and it will cause internal heating, which eventually reduces the life of electrolytic capacitors. And we can probably see that in action. It's creeping up very slowly. It's at about 33, 34 degrees at the moment. But I'm not too concerned, because the way that this is the fan is right next to this PCB. So we're going to get airflow straight past this capacitor. In fact, these slotted edges here, as opposed to being round all over, they're flat on this edge to allow some airflow down this side. So actually, this capacitor is going to get really good cooling, and therefore I'm a little bit less concerned than I possibly would have been had it have been in a completely sealed enclosure. So this is how it looks with it assembled onto the LED light engine, and we've got the wires coming up straight into the plug for the LEDs. We've got another connector here. This is for our temperature sensor that's mounted near the white LED on here, which is dissipating around 30 watts at maximum power. And then we've got the connector for the fan, and you can see we've got a little slot here in the PCB and another one in exactly the same shape PCB that's going to plug onto the top of this. This will allow the wires to pass through and then plug directly into that top PCB. We've got the flat edges here to try and aid with airflow through into the fan and onto the heatsink. And the idea is that we've got the rest of the chassis here. So it's starting to look a little bit like a disco lighter par can, if you know what one of those is. But basically the whole thing slides into here. We've got the cooling vents in line with the fins on the LED heatsink. We've got some vents at the top here to allow airflow through here, and then the top cap, which is going to screw to the top as well, and that whole thing is going to sit in there. And then this is going to be suspended above the aquarium. So that's how it's all starting to come together, and it'll all be held in through 4 screws in the top of the unit here, which will go through into these bosses. So yeah, in the next video we're going to be looking at the controller PCB, which has just arrived, so we should be able to get that up and assembled. And then really it's a case of programming the ESP32 with some firmware to control the light depending on the time of day. Now, someone did actually have a question about the Cree XHP70.2 LED that I'm using in this design, and that is, can you get anywhere near 4000 lumens from it? Now, in the datasheet, they tell you what the luminous intensity is going to be at a test current, which is something like 1 amp or so. And then there is another graph which shows the luminous intensity in relationship to the input current. And with any LED, you get the greatest change in brightness for every change in current at the start, and then it starts to slope out. So the question really was, can you get anywhere near that 200%, which gives you about 4,000 lumens? So what we're going to do is, I've got the signal generator set to 50%, and I've got a lux meter. It's not measuring lumens, but it will give a relative change in intensity. And I'm going to have to offset this slightly because I know this LED saturates the sensor on this meter. So if I place it to the side here so that the beam is actually aimed just here, it shouldn't affect the relative measurement too much. And we're at about 72,000 lux. We've got the times 10 at the bottom here, so 72,000 lux. And if we increase this to 100% now, hopefully we should get about 140,000 lux. And there we go, just slightly over, so 150,000 lux. So that appears to be working out, so we definitely are getting that increase in brightness there. It's obviously not a reading in lumens, but we're definitely getting that 200% brightness that is in that datasheet. So yeah, that's how it's all coming together. Massively over-engineered and possibly the most expensive aquarium lamp going, but it should last quite a long time, and it's all to my spec, so I'm quite happy with spending the money on something that should perform exactly as I need it to. So I hope you found the video interesting, and until next time, thanks for watching.